In yesterday's NFC title game against the Washington Commanders and the Philadelphia Eagles, Detroit Lions fans got even more damning evidence of how Ben Johnson sold the team out so that way he could become the Bears head coach. We're going to talk about it, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. Folks, I can tell you this right now. I know that for some people, some Lions fans, they're going to look at this episode, and the first thing they're going to think, the first thing they're going to ask, say, whatever the case is why are we still having this conversation? Why are we still talking about it? Why is it that we cannot stop talking about Ben Johnson? Or, put it more succinctly, why can't I stop talking about him? Here's the reason why, folks. When you take a look at the circumstances in which Ben Johnson left, or as I call him now, Benedict Johnson, and you take a look at the circumstances and the scenario and how everything panned itself out, before the game yesterday against the Commanders and the Eagles, it was already bad as it was. Like, it smelled and stunk to high heaven. Like, it was just bad. But again, based upon everything that I had, it was just, as they would say, circumstantial evidence. There wasn't necessarily anything concrete. And even to this moment, I still don't have anything concrete as far as to say, oh yeah, you know what? Ben Johnson, deliberately threw that game. But the game that we saw yesterday against the Commanders and the Eagles, once again, just added even more damning circumstantial evidence, on top of that already massive fire to begin with. Go back to the game yesterday against the Commanders and the Eagles. The Eagles absolutely destroyed the Commanders. Destroyed them 55-23. It wasn't even a contest. Think about it, folks. 25 times 2 is 50. That means that the frickin' Commanders lost by double what they put up. It wasn't even a contest. Let's just call it for what it is. By the start of the fourth quarter, the game was over. I mean, you go back to the beginning of the fourth quarter, like with 12 minutes still left in the fourth quarter, the Eagles were up 41-23. Like, it wasn't even a contest for the last quarter of the entire game. Now, some are going to take a look at that, and they're going to be like, well, David, we hear what you're saying about, Johnson, but is it possible about the fact that, the Eagles having a healthier defense than us, that was the reason why they won? Oh, yeah, sure, that's a factor. It definitely is a factor. Because, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again now. Injuries are a reason as to why teams can win or lose. And, well, let's call it for what it is. When our defense has enough injuries that it can make its own hospital ward, that ought to tell you something. Others will say, well, David, that's one thing you could think about, but what about the fact that the Eagles didn't commit any turnovers yesterday when the Lions committed 5 against the Commanders? Again, that's another big issue. That's another big problem because, again, it's hard to win games when you are literally -5 in the turnover column. So I acknowledge that too. That also does play a factor. But again, let's just go back, shall we? Go back to the game we played against the Commanders. Despite all those facts, the fact our defense wasn't healthy, despite the fact that we had committed all those turnovers, going in to the literal final quarter of the game, we were still in it against the Commanders. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The play that broke the camel's back for the Lions was that stupid fake end around by Jamison Williams. That was an interception. Because again, up until that point, the Lions were only down by 10. It wasn't like they were down like the freaking, Commanders were against the Eagles 41-23. Wasn't even close to that. And again, the Lions up to that point, before that play had even been called, they were at half point. They'd already had two very good, one explosive play to get them there. So again, you're not comparing apples to apples there if you're trying to say, oh, well, this. No. Back the hell up. The Lions were only down by 10. They were at the halfway point when that play happened. They were still very much in the game. Rather, as I just mentioned with that play, and I've talked about in the past with other plays, the reason why the Lions lost, you can talk about the injuries being a factor, because they were. You can talk about the turnovers being a factor, because they were. But let's just call it for what it is. If you take a look at how the Eagles' offense ran against the Commanders versus how our offense ran against the Commanders, not only metaphorically, but also literally, it's a night and day damn difference. And the reason why is because Kellen Moore, the Eagles' offensive coordinator, he was checked in and wanting to make sure his team was ready to play. Whereas our offensive coordinator, Benedict Johnson, he was checked out and was wanting to get to Chicago as fast as humanly possible. Because let's think about this. Notice this right off the bat when you take a look at how different the two offenses compared playing against the exact same damn defense. Think about that. Both offenses, for the most part, were 100% healthy. Yeah, the offensive line of the Eagles, they were not 100% healthy. They had one guy that was dealing with an injury, but he played through it. The only difference there for us was that we didn't have Zeitler in that game. But otherwise, both offenses were pretty much running at full 100% because we got back Monty in that game. But think about it. Look at how our offense looked against the Commanders versus how the Eagles' offense looked against the Commanders. Our offense, when we came out against the Commanders, it looked flat, it looked lethargic, it didn't look sharp, it looked like there was something missing as far as an energy perspective. It looked like the Lions had just, kind of woken up from a hibernation, so to speak. Which you could say, well, maybe that was because of the week off. But that to me makes no sense. Because Dan Campbell and everybody else that's played with the Lions all say the exact same thing. They all have this mindset of, listen, we are going to put in the work and we're going to be ready to go. But yet somehow, some way, they weren't. And I don't believe for a damn second it has anything to do with the week off or the bye. I don't believe that for a second. Because it's like, wait a minute here. You just had a big win against the Vikings to secure not only the division title for the second year in a row, but you also got the number 1 seed. So it's like, okay, you know why you were going for the number 1 seed. You know why you were playing for it. Because it's better to have the number 1 seed to play with home field advantage. So the Lions didn't need to know that. And then on top of that, you got back Monty for that game. The game against the Commanders. So it's like, listen, getting back Monty, that should have definitely energized the Lions offense. Because it's like, hey, we just got back one of our best players. So then why did our offense look off? Why was it not as efficient as we've seen it in the past? And again, the reason why is because Kellen Moore of the Eagles was more interested in actually winning his game, whereas Johnson was more interested in becoming a head coach and getting his actual head coaching money. That is the difference. Now, that's talking about it in a generic sense, but when you start actually taking a look at the more in-depth stuff as we're about to here right now, boy, it's a compelling argument. Again, it's not 100% concrete, but the circumstantial evidence, like my title says, it's more damning by the second. Because think about this, folks. How efficient was that Eagles offense in terms of how well it ran, both, as I said, metaphorically and literally against the Commanders' defense? In the game yesterday, the Eagles were 50% on third down, 100% on fourth down. They were almost dead even in terms of first downs picked up by both pass and rush. They had 12 picked up by the passing game, 13 picked up by the running game. They had 13 total drives yesterday, of which they scored on 8 of them. That's a very important number there. 8 out of 13, because 8 divided by 13 is 61.5%, folks. Okay, think about this. Everyone knew, going back to freaking when the playoffs started, to the fact of when the Commanders lost yesterday, that the weakness of the Commanders was their rush defense. Everybody and their brother knew it because their rush defense was one of the worst coming into the playoffs. And let's just call it for what it is. The Eagles not only knew that, but they exploited it, and they quite literally blew that shit up to kingdom come. Because think about it. How did the freaking Eagles win yesterday? I can give you one simple word, and it's one name: Saquon. Saquon Barkley was primarily the engine, the reason, the weapon that got the Commanders out of their game and how the Eagles won theirs. Because if you take a look at Saquon, I'm going to say this right now. You could try and make an argument, but you'd be hard-pressed to find people that would agree with you. He's by far the best running back in the league. But why am I talking about Saquon here? Well, let's think about it. Saquon might be the best running back in the league right now. But Jahmyr Gibbs, our running back, he is got much more room and talent to grow into than what Saquon does. Saquon is pretty much at where he's going to be. He's not really going to get much better. And he's already a great damn running back. Probably going to be a Hall of Famer. But when you take a look at Gibbs, he's only in his second year in the league. He's got a hell of a lot more room to grow. So for me, it's like, okay, notice what Kellen Moore did with the Eagles offense. He made sure to not only put the ball in the team's best offensive weapon, which was Saquon, but he also made sure to put it into his best option to beat his opponent. Because, what did I just say? The Commanders' weakness was their rush defense. So if your best offensive weapon is Saquon, who's your running back, and the Commanders' weakest element is their rush defense, I don't really have to understand that too hard to say, hey, 2 + 2 = 4. Hand the mother flipping ball off to freaking Saquon Barkley. So wait a minute here. If I, who have never coached a down of freaking, professional football, I stopped playing football when I was in college, if I can understand that, please tell me then why didn't freaking Ben Johnson understand that? Because think about it. We pretty much saw Jahmyr Gibbs only for about the first half of that game against the Commanders. After that, for whatever dumbass reason, freaking Johnson kept plugging in David Montgomery. And by that time, when he finally did get back to Gibbs, it was too late. It made no sense to use Gibbs because now we were down too much. We had to throw the ball. So the whole game plan that should have been implemented was the one that the Eagles did, which was run, 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 run. But what did freaking, Benedict Johnson do? Oh, sure, he started out running, but then all of a sudden, he decided to flip script, go to another running back who was healthy enough to play, but should not have been healthy enough to play over Gibbs. Again, go back to when we started that game against the Commanders. Gibbs was absolutely gashing the hell out of the Commanders. 10 yards a pop, both catching and running the ball. And then for some oddball reason, we went away from that. I'm just like, why? Why would you go away from something that absolutely works? This is playoff football. This isn't time to get sentimental about who's getting more carries or more touches. Let the guy who's making the plays get the touches. But yet, for some oddball reason, that's not what we did. Then, let's think about this, folks. I just said how the freaking, Eagles did against the Commanders, right? How'd the Lions do against the Commanders? Oh boy. In the game against the Commanders, the Lions were 33% on third down. We did match what the Eagles did, 100% on fourth down, but notice the difference in how we picked up our first downs. The Lions picked up their first downs primarily through the air. 19 first downs through the air to only 10 first downs on the ground. So what you're seeing there is a huge imbalance. And again, when you start getting behind, that's what's going to happen. And then, like I said with the Eagles, the Lions had 11 total drives, but they only scored on 5 of those drives. And 4 of them were actual touchdowns. 1 was a field goal. Well, think about this, folks. The Lions had 5 turnovers in that game. So as many drives as they had scores, that was the same amount of drives they had turnovers. You want to know what 5 divided by 11 is? It's 45.5%. So wait a minute here. Hold up. Not only were the Eagles significantly more balanced in how they picked up their first downs, 12-13 versus 9-10, but they were also converting on third down at a much higher percentage against the Commanders, and they were scoring on their drives at a ridiculously higher rate than the Lions did against the Commanders. Because think about it. On third down, the Eagles converted at 50%. The Lions only converted at 33%. That is a 20... Dude, that is like a 17, almost 20% difference. That's massive. And then when you take a look at the scoring drive percentage, the Lions were converting at 45.5%. The Eagles were converting at 61.5%. Again, a massive difference. But that's only where the tip of the iceberg starts when you start taking a look at the numbers and start saying, wait a minute here, this doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. Because let's think about this, folks. You go back to the regular season and how both of those teams did, Lions and Eagles, in terms of their scoring drive percentage throughout the regular season and their third drive conversion percentage throughout the regular season. The Lions on scoring drive percentage conversion and third drive percentage conversion were at 51.6% and 47.6% respectfully. You want to know where the Eagles were at for those same two categories? For scoring drive percentage, they were at 44.5%. For third down conversion percentage, they were at 41.7%. So wait a minute here. Just at face value, the Lions were substantially better than the Eagles in both of those categories in the regular season. But yet, wait a minute here. How does that compare when you start taking a look at all the other ways you can compare these numbers? This is where it gets really, really interesting. And this is why, again, I say that Benedict Johnson, sold us out. Because think about it, folks. I said that the Lions' scoring drive percentage for the game against the Commanders was 45.5%. In the regular season, we were doing it at 51.6%. That means we were operating at 6% less than what we normally did. And when you take a look at that same exact type of comparison for third down percentage, which we were 33% against the Commanders in that game versus the 47.6% on normal in the regular season, that's almost a 15% less ability to operate. So in both scoring drive percentage and third down percentage, we were operating significantly less efficient than what we normally did. Now, here's what makes this even worse, is that when you then take a look at how the Commanders' defense did in terms of scoring drive percentage stops, in terms of third down percentage stops, and then you compare that to what the freaking Lions did in the regular season, it gets even worse. Because think about this. For scoring drive percentage in the regular season, the Commanders gave up a score 41.5% of the time on defensive drives, compared to the Lions getting a score 51.6% of the times. That is literally almost a 10% difference. It's literally off by 0.1%. And when you take a look at the third down conversion percentage, it's 9.4% because the Commanders gave up on 38.2% a third down conversion, whereas the Lions were picking it up on 47.6%. So think about this, folks. The Lions in the regular season were operating 10% better in terms of scoring on drives compared to the Commanders against their defense, and almost 9.5% better in terms of converting on third down. But yet, here's what makes this so absolutely miserable for us. You take that 9.9 and then you add it in terms of the 6.1% differential that we had in the actual game itself compared to what we normally did. That is a minus 16% out of what we normally should have been able to do against the Commanders. Think about that. We were minus 6.1 against ourselves. But when you take the minus 6.1 against ourselves versus the difference of, okay, what did we do in the regular season as an offense in terms of our ability to convert on third down and scoring drives versus how the Commanders did it on defense, with the ability to say, okay, how did we do against ourselves? You're talking about a 16-point differential. That's horrible. That means that when we went into the game, we were not even operating on half of what we normally did. And on third down percentage, it's even worse. it's a minus 24-point differential. So what does that tell me? That tells me that even though our offense was literally, not even operating close to half of its efficiency, the fact that even in the fourth quarter, we were only down by 10 points. That tells me that Ben Johnson literally tried to sabotage the hell out of our offense. Because even with our offense not even figuring itself out for the majority of the game, we were only down by 10 points. Think about that. Only down by 10. Now, here's what makes this even worse. Is that I know some people are going to try and say, oh, well, David, you're just trying to blame Ben Johnson. You're not trying to give any sort of the blame to Jared Goff. Oh, no, that's not true at all. Jared Goff had 2 really bad interceptions. 2 really bad interceptions. But here's what I got to say to y'all, for those that just want to keep pointing the finger at Goff. Let's think about this for half a second. We have seen Jared Goff when, everything's riding on him to try and come up with plays. He's made plays happen. Go back to the Bucs game last year in the regular season. We had no run game. Goff literally won that game purely by throwing the ball. Oh, you want another example? Go back to the Bills game this year. In that game, we literally couldn't run the ball for crap. Jared Goff was literally the only offensive weapon we had because otherwise we had nothing. So wait a minute here. Jared Goff in the game against the Bills was 38 of 59 for almost 65 completion percentage rate for 500 yards, 8.4 average a throw, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, with a 118.9 passer rating and a 76.4 QBR. Okay, here. Let me put this to you this way. If Jared Goff could do that against the Bills, mind you, the same team that literally went down to the wire with the Kansas City Chiefs, and again, I don't want to go there, I'm just simply using that as reference because screw the Chiefs, but if Goff was able to do that against the Bills, you're going to try and honestly tell me that all of a sudden he couldn't do it against the Commanders? No, sir. We've seen Goff have games where he literally can take things over by himself. It doesn't happen a whole hell of a lot because the Lions don't need him to do that. But more often than not, when they need him to do it, he does it. So then please tell me this. What sense does it make to blame Goff as the reason why we lost when we've seen Goff literally step up to the plate in the past and make those types of plays? Versus the fact when, what did I just say? Kellen Moore had his offense operating at a 61.5% conversion rate for scoring drive percentage and operating freaking at 50% on third down conversion rate, whereas Ben Johnson was absolutely abysmal, absolutely horrible in comparison to that. So are you going to honestly try and tell me that the reason why the Lions lost was on Jared Goff, or are you really going to try and actually look at the numbers, look at the data, look at the relevant information and the circumstances about how this whole damn thing fell apart, and tell me that, what makes more sense? That Jared Goff was the reason we lost, or because Ben Johnson had such a shitty game plan that the Lions offense was literally struggling to make it work because, that's right. Rather than doing a game plan that made sense, like Kellen Moore did for his Eagles, Ben Johnson was more concerned about becoming the Bears' next head coach. He wanted that job more than he wanted to finish the job here in Detroit. Because again, let's think about it this way, folks, just to wrap this whole thing up. Like I said, the Eagles won against the Commanders 55-23. We lost against the Commanders 45-31? So we lost by 14 points. The Eagles could have given us some of the points that they won by and still won against the Commanders, and we would have been able to have beaten the Commanders if you could have done that. That's how much better Kellen Moore's offensive game plan was than the freaking, one that Johnson came up with. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Eagles defense. They played a hell of a damn game too. They did. But again, we're talking about offenses here. Our offense, even though it was operating at half of the normal efficiency it should have been operating at, we still were in the game up until the last quarter until Ben Johnson quite literally threw the dagger to the whole thing. Because again, I will never forget that play as long as I live. Never seen Jamison Williams ever throw a pass before. You've literally gotten to the midway point of the field. You're driving. You're doing pretty damn good. So what does your dumbass do? Let's throw a trick play out there that has a very, very low chance of being successful. And that's literally what kills it for us. Because the very next thing we know, the Commanders are scoring again and now we're down 17 points and there's only like 8 minutes left in the game. Yeah. Ben Johnson quite literally sold us out. And he did it in every way possible so that way his freaking ass could be standing behind the Bears podium, giving that shit-eating grin of his to say, oh, bear down, everybody, we're here. It's like, okay, fine. You got what you wanted, Ben Johnson. Enjoy it while you can, because I can tell you this right now, it ain't going to go anywhere anytime soon, and people aren't going to forget it. Because, believe me when I tell you this, I already have a very funny suspicion you're going to be more closer to an Adam Gase then you're going to be closer to a freaking, I don't know, John Gruden. Just simply telling you for what it is, bud. But anyway, having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things. Like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, want to highly encourage y'all, please, to make sure you do one of these 3 things. Well, actually, I already said that. Make sure you do this. Hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also encourage y'all, please, to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Share wherever and anywhere you possibly can. The more we do so, the greater the channel can grow and spread. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope you all enjoyed the content. Hope you all got something out of the content, and hope I was able to give you something new that you hadn't thought of before. Whether this is your first time watching me or you guys have been watching me for the upteenth time, I hope that is exactly what happened. Also, hope that everyone has something out there that makes themselves happy, makes themselves smile, because again, our joy is truly invaluable. Don't let anybody take that away from you. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.